This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That toll-free number is 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay Noon.
And evidently, there's a boogaloo afoot in Virginia. It would seem the governor there is attempting to declare a state of emergency where people cannot assemble near the Capitol building with weapons, including helmets, of all things. Not being allowed at this I
wonder if they have a motorcycle helmet law in Virginia. I'm not familiar if they do or not, but
That's an interesting point.
Or like those Harley skull caps. I mean, I don't know who's going to be riding a motorcycle in January, but can't wear a helmet.
Well, Virginia is probably considerably warmer than New Hampshire, so they could probably get away with a motorcycle. I imagine it's like 50, 55 degrees there.
What if you're mentally challenged and you really need to wear headgear?
You probably wouldn't be going to the pro-Second Amendment rally.
Well, if I identify as mentally challenged and want to wear the headgear there, I mean, there's a lot of fun people could have with that.
There is indeed. But that's not the only place where things are happening. We've actually got Mark calling us from Hong Kong. Mark, how are things over there?
I am calling from the future.
That's what I hear. What time is it there?
It's the morning time, I guess. It just turned 8 a.m.
Okay. On the 16th, I assume?
The next day, whatever it is. I'm afraid I'm all messed up, sleeping at weird times. It's been kind of a mess. Yesterday, I made it to a demonstration of people, the Free Hong Kong folks,
right.
And that was pretty awesome.
How did it go? I mean, is it really as bad as Western media tends to make it out to be with tear gas and cops kidnapping people? Did you happen to see?
I think largely that particular aspect of it ended in November, and that they found that, at least at that time, it was unsustainable to continue, that sort of thing. Governments are really good at violence.
It was unsustainable for the protesters or for the state?
Right.
Okay.
Well, the only thing that's going to be unsustainable for China is the United States military. There's not much when it comes to states. I mean, there are organizations of violence, and they do really well at that whole thing.
Right.
But it was very cool. Yes, sir.
Can you have guns in Hong Kong?
I have no clue. I certainly. I haven't seen one.
Okay.
I would guess the answer is no. The answer to guns, pretty much every place in the world, is no, until you figure out otherwise.
So who do you think is ultimately going to win in this conflict between the Chinese government and the people of Hong Kong? Do you get any sense of that over there?
Yeah, it depends on whether or not the protesters, they have the numbers. So the largest percentage of people here do not want to be part of China in a sort of legal sense. They consider themselves Hong Kongers, and they don't want to go from one of the freest places in the world to one of the least free places in the world. They're not interested in that.
Well,
if they can sustain it, however, it's the pressure. What they need to do is they need to become ungovernable. And if they can be ungovernable, then China will give up at some point.
I think the only way people can maintain freedom, a group of people, the numbers of those people is kind of irrelevant when the Chinese military is quite well armed. I think the only way people can really maintain their freedom is for those individuals to all be armed. I mean, it's a great case here in the United States, I believe, has never been invaded because of the fact that literally there's a sniper behind every blade of grass. I mean, what is there? I don't remember how many 100 million
there's like 6
permits?
Guns for every American at the very least, or something along those lines.
Yeah, so there's like a crazy.
I believe the number is two guns per American.
Oh,
is what I've heard.
There's like 100 and something million hunting permits nationwide in places, in a lot of places hunting permits aren't even required, but a lot of places they have hunting permits, and pretty much every hunter is a sniper. And there's a lot. 74 million, I think, is what the number was. I heard hunting permits in the United States. So it means you got 74 million snipers essentially. And just like the prime minister of Japan during World War II was like, yeah, we can't invade the United States. There'll be a sniper behind every blade of grass. But if these people in Hong Kong, don't really have a way to defend themselves, I hope they can 3D print them some some firearms or something. Get creative. That's what I'd be working on if I was there, I think.
Well, they've shown a lot of creativity, like using traffic cones and bottles of water to extinguish tear gas canisters and things of that nature. They've certainly shown some awesomely creative ideas. That's the first one that comes to mind.
At this point, they're basically fighting the police. If they're, they were at that point in November, they were basically fighting the police. There wasn't really the military in the same way. So they, they didn't have to arm up, to the level of fighting a military. They're really just trying to keep, trying to keep themselves from being harmed and being able to demonstrate and that kind of thing. But there's more than one way besides sort of frontal assault to make yourself ungovernable. Certainly, getting out there in the streets and throwing Molotov cocktails is going to, make you ungovernable, at least for a short period of time. But usually they just toss you in the pokey at that point. But
now, by ungovernable, I assume you mean more like passive resistance, just not obeying the law,
right? I think that's what has to be done. Specifically, the laws, the police. So, if the police are going to be employed as a brute squad against the people, and best I can tell, that's what I haven't seen a cop that wasn't at a demonstration the whole time I've been here. I mean, they're not on the corner keeping the peace. This is a peaceful place. So the cops are employed to keep the protesters from being protesty. So if the police, when they go out, are find doing their jobs difficult in some manner or another, then they'll just go out less. That's what happened in Keene with the meter maids. They cut their schedule in less than half, and gave fewer tickets.
Really?
So
it sounds like an effective strategy then. I mean, if you can do something like that to keep the cops from harassing people, it's always going to be a net positive for society. But what could they do that wouldn't result in violence being used against them in order to make...
they could follow them around with cameras. Might be a good idea. I don't know, something terrible, something, there could be, auto repairs that just constantly happen to these, to their vehicles. I mean, I don't know. Things that make it difficult to do. These people have shown themselves to be extraordinarily resourceful. I doubt they need too many ideas from me, but at the protest, another thing that's really great is the Asian habit of using a face mask to protect against sort of spreading of germs.
Right.
Everybody at the protest yesterday had a face mask on, and it's not that unusual.
Okay. This helps them keep from being identified by the police, I guess?
Sure.
Or is it just because it helps them not get sick?
It helps thwart facial recognition.
Both of those things.
Okay.
Right. So I recommend that the United States take on this particular habit of protecting each other from airborne germs.
These folks in Hong Kong, I recommend that they read... Ben Stone, The Bad Quaker's book, or listen to it on audio. It's thebadquaker.com. You can either download it in PDF or in audio, and it's a 3-part manual for dismantling the state. And there's really, really good instructions in there, essentially for above ground, below ground activism, people who want to get dirty, people who don't want to get dirty. If you want to dismantle the state, there's a job for everybody, according to Ben Stone, and he's really laid it out quite well in his book.
And what did you say the name of this book was?
Subversion, Sabotage, and Simple Sedition, a 3-part manual to dismantling the state. I could have messed it up a little bit, but it's something like that.
Something along those lines. It sounds like a fascinating read. Hopefully the people of Hong Kong are at least familiar with it, but it sounds like they're essentially rediscovering the same ideas anyway. And they're being very clever about it. As Mark said, they've shown themselves to be extremely resourceful. So I'm glad, Mark, to hear that things have calmed down versus what we have been hearing about it here in the United States.
Yep. If people want to see pictures from yesterday's demonstration, you can look for Mark Edge on Facebook. I've got all the stuff up there. Right now I'm at the top of Dragonback, which is the trail here that I wanted to hike while I was on Hong Kong. And because I knew it would make Ian really jealous if I got to hike.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number is 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay.
And do you want more businesses accepting Bitcoin Cash and Dash? Well, now with AnyPay, you earn passive income for every purchase at businesses that you convince to sign up for the service. Finally, a financial incentive to spread Bitcoin Cash and Dash. You made it happen, so you receive the rewards. Download the AnyPay Cash Register app and add your cryptocurrency wallet addresses. Then install it at a real-life business and tell us what you did at anypayinc.com. Again, that's anypayinc.com. It works with both Bitcoin Cash and Dash. Commissions are instant. There's no waiting for weeks or months to get your payout. It's funded by AnyPay's vending operations, so there's no cost to the business owners. Help get more people accepting Bitcoin Cash and Dash. Again, check it out at anypay.inc. So Virginia, it seems, has some interesting things going on with the governor declaring a state of emergency there. Fearing potential violence, evidently, Ralph Northam is declaring a state of emergency and is banning firearms and other weapons on the Capitol grounds in Richmond ahead of a gun rights demonstration planned for next week.
So they're going to test the gun rights.
Yes. And what I found interesting about this was it was brought to my attention by Fort Fisher that it does, in fact, explicitly exclude helmets, which I guess you could take a helmet off your head and hit someone with it, but it's a bizarre thing to consider a weapon.
I mean, brass knuckles, a knife, a billy club, a taser would be a much, much better weapon than a helmet.
Those are all banned as well.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Yeah, you can have a pocket knife, but the blade cannot be longer than 3 inches, so it's got to be useless. So, and this is, of course, while they're doing a gun rights demonstration.
The governor of the parasite, corporation calling itself State of Virginia or Commonwealth of Virginia, I guess they are, is really just they're testing to see how far they can go, as best I can tell. And this governor, I assume he's a Democrat, just based on this stuff here, and he probably has doesn't know anybody outside the District of Criminals Beltway, and he doesn't realize that the rest of Virginia is full of rednecks that all have guns and pickup trucks and go hunting a lot.
He says, we have received credible intelligence from our law enforcement agencies that there are groups with malicious plans for the rally that is planned for Monday, Northam said during a press conference Wednesday afternoon. Gun rights supporters are preparing to converge on Richmond for a lobbying day and a rally Monday morning. They're opposed to efforts by Virginia Democrats who have just taken control of the Virginia legislature following the 2019 elections to pass a slate of gun control bills that are backed by Northam. So he does seem to be a Democratic governor, and now the Democrats in Virginia control the legislature as well. And they're like, hey, let's get rid of guns.
So the article said intelligence. Didn't George W. Bush receive intelligence that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and was, arming the whoever's that are supposedly the enemies over in that area?
Well, I would imagine the people who are protesting the government and its arms restrictions in Richmond aren't necessarily going there with the plan of instigating some sort of coup or anything like that. But this may lead to it, depending on how extreme these people are and how willing they are to actually do what they've been talking about for months.
I think it would be awesome if somebody showed up there with a setup on a trailer where they could set up a whole bunch of nooses, and they actually went in there armed, went into the state house, and they hung the governor, and they hung all these other people who, seriously, I mean, these guys are no good. They are. When government wants to take your guns away from you, it's because they intend to do things that would get them shot. And the only way they're not going to get shot is by taking the guns away. And history keeps on repeating itself over and over and over and over again. I mean, if you look at, Stalin, Mussolini, Hitler, Mao Zedong. I mean, Lily Tang, who I'm going to try get on his show one night. She's just busy every Wednesday.
Right.
She saw this firsthand. She grew up in Mao's China, and she is hell bent against any gun regulation at all.
I would imagine. I mean, you're not going to get into the boxcars willingly, right?
Yeah.
If you have a gun and can resist, that's the way you're going to go out, because they're going to kill you anyway.
I mean, gun registration is a very bad thing because if you look at just history, the law-abiding citizens register their guns. And then they say, okay, now we know who has the guns, and then now we make the guns illegal. Then they know who turns them in, and they know who to go get them from. And like in New Hampshire, just to digress a little bit, they just did a vaccine registry, so they can tell who hasn't been vaccinated. And there's even under Agenda 21 United Nations stuff I've been studying for years. There's money, there's programs to do basically checkpoints where if you have not got your vaccines according to the vaccine registry, there will be men there to either put you in a cattle car or to vaccinate you. And if you don't have your gun, you're either getting vaccinated or you're going in a cattle car. And just like Ernie Hancock always says, you need to shoot these guys before they slam the door shut on a cattle car. And if you can't shoot them, well, you're just going to be in, a pile of bones like at Auschwitz.
I guess so. It didn't seem to work out very well for the government of New Zealand after the New Zealand shooter, and the New Zealand government decided they were going to ban a certain type of firearm or something like that. I think it was like 17 that were turned in across the entire country. I can't imagine. And we saw the same thing in New Jersey when they banned bump stocks. Like 0 were turned in.
Oh, years ago in Connecticut, they banned after the Sandy Hook thing, which is extremely fishy. I wasn't there. I'm not a witness. I don't know anything about it, but it's fishy. After that Sandy Hook, in fact, I was dating a girl who lived in Connecticut at the time, and they were showing on TV how there were people all lined up, turning in their weapons, and they banned, I don't know what they banned, some kind of automatic gun or whatever in Connecticut. This was a few years back, and basically,
that's bizarre. I just don't understand the mentality of a person who sees a mass shooting and thinks, you know what, I should get rid of my ability to defend myself against these mass shootings.
Well, so they were showing pictures of people like turning their guns in,
right?
And these pictures,
removing their own ability to defend themselves.
These pictures were like manipulated. You know how they got like 30 people sitting in a crowd, and they say that everybody's there to see Hillary, and there's no one else in the whole stadium.
Right.
So it was kind of one of these things. The actual amount of guns that was turned in was like very, very minimal, and a lot of people lost their guns in fishing accidents.
I imagine that would be the way to go about doing it. Just don't comply. Don't obey.
Right, and don't let them know you have them.
Yeah. If the government says, hey, you have to turn in your ability to defend yourself from us, I mean, that should be your sign right there. That's your biggest indicator that it's a bad idea to surrender that ability to defend yourself.
They passed red flag here in New Hampshire. So maybe the governor will veto it again. Who knows? But just the other day they passed it.
Did they?
Yes.
Well, one would hope that he intends to veto it because it's so ripe for abuse. So more on this breaking story in Virginia. What's going to happen? What do you think? Is the boogaloo upon us? 855-450-3733. Again, that's 855-450-FREE, as in Free Talk Live.
Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That toll-free number is 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay.
And if you do happen to get someone signed up for buying and selling, for accepting Bitcoin Cash at their retail business using AnyPay, I would recommend the Edge wallet. It's available for both iOS and Android. It allows you to buy, sell, and securely hold cryptocurrencies. It's user-controlled, so you always have your own money. It's none of that Coinbase crap where they actually control your private keys, none of that. It supports Bitcoin Core, Bitcoin Cash, Dash, Ethereum tokens, Monero, Ripple, Stellar, and many more. Been being built by a veteran team since 2014 with a tagline of "Secure Your Freedoms." Yeah, secure your freedom. Sorry. Visit edge.app to find out more about it, or just look it up on the Google Play or iOS stores and download it directly and get started buying, selling, and holding Bitcoin Cash.
I got a question for you about the Edge wallet. You use it, correct?
Correct.
Now, I haven't used it because I got a Bitcoin.com wallet on my phone, and I have a Coinami I've been using, and I ain't got much room left on the phone. It's always an issue. So I helped somebody set up an Edge wallet, a local convenience store right next to me. We got a Bitcoin vending machine a couple weeks ago put in there. And
very cool.
A few nights ago I was down there, and guys like, I'm going to buy some Bitcoin. And I'm like, you got a wallet? I just happened to be there, so I help him. So I said, set up an Edge wallet. Well, you can pick either SegWit or so it says either Bitcoin SegWit or what's the other one? I don't even think it had it just said Bitcoin.
Legacy, maybe?
I don't remember now, but so I ended up actually texting Derek J.
This is the Bitcoin.com wallet?
No. This is the Edge wallet.
Huh. I've never noticed that in the Edge wallet. I know the Bitcoin.com wallet doesn't even support. No, that's right. The Bitcoin.com wallet doesn't even support SegWit Bitcoin addresses.
So, so Derek J. Was like, do the non-SegWit one. That's what's gonna, because I didn't want the guy to have any issues, and here I am recommending the Edge wallet. I never used it. And I'm like, but Derek J. got him straightened out. So all is good.
I will have to look into that more closely. I don't think I actually have gone beyond just the default settings with Bitcoin Core.
Yeah, as soon as he got the wallet all going, it's like, okay, what coins, what current cryptocurrencies do you want? And there's the whole list. So he did the Bitcoin Cash, Dash, and couple others that he just thought they were cool names. The guy doesn't even know anything about. I just recommend you do those, top three there. And so yeah, he bought some Bitcoin Cash and some Bitcoin, a couple weeks ago. So it's done him good.
Very cool. Well, non-SegWit is definitely going to have more compatibility, but it will also generally have higher fees.
Right. So it said Bitcoin SegWit or Bitcoin non-SegWit. And Derek J goes, I do non-SegWit.
Yeah, for compatibility reasons. Anyway, let's go to the phones. We've got Kirby calling from Indianapolis. Kirby, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
As far as Virginia goes and the governor, we're talking about Ralph Northam, the guy who posed in blackface next to his buddy dressed up in a Ku Klux Klan costume.
This is that same guy?
Yeah, that's the governor of Virginia.
He wants to disarm black people, doesn't he?
He wants to disarm everybody. There's a lady you need to look up. Her name is Kitty Wentworth. Worthman, I'm sorry. Werthannen.
Very familiar with her.
Yeah, she's a Holocaust survivor.
Yep.
And she told us with her own mouth, do not give up your guns. When the government wants them, it's for a reason that is nefarious, as I don't know if I can say that on air, but it is nefarious. They don't want them because they're looking out for your best interest. No dictator has become a dictator until they took their people's guns. Now, I live in Indiana. My senator here, state senator, Greg Taylor, for everybody who lives in Indiana, just proposed the same bill as they did in Virginia 2 weeks ago. He's up for re-election this year. Let's try and fire him.
I suggest hang him.
No.
The elections are rigged.
I understand that, but we can't go around killing people.
Well,
I would agree, Kirby.
I mean, these guys are diabolical, evil. They are absolute psychopaths, is what they are. And there's there's all these women in government, WIG, ALEC, I forget what American League of they're like these corporate nonprofit think groups, but they're not really like lobbyist firms. And they just have this unlimited amount of money for like pushing gun legislation, pushing mandatory vaccinations, just pushing all this stuff. And we got to remember the voting machines, these electronic voting machines that are being used everywhere have zero accountability. So just being able to vote someone out, especially if they're establishment, these hackathons, they take these Diebold machines.
On that note, it's even worse in the state of Mississippi because there's no paper trail whatsoever. There's not even any actual physical evidence that you actually went in there and voted.
Right.
It's 100% digital. At least in most states, they will have a paper receipt.
I've never seen a paper receipt. But the same company that's like the number one like ATM machine builder, Diebold, and every ATM machine spits out a receipt. There's no reason a voting machine can't spit out a receipt unless they don't want a paper trail.
Well, I just take a picture with my cell phone of the ballot before I put it in the machine.
There was
That's
a law.
I've been suggesting to everybody to do.
That's illegal in a lot of places. I would do it as well, and I did it in Mississippi, but it's illegal in a lot of places.
Then let them arrest you.
Yeah.
Because how are they going to tell you it's illegal for you to take a picture of your secret ballot unless they want to rig an election?
Well, of course they do.
This is where we as a people have fallen short. We keep letting their threat of jail get to us. We have to remember the example that people like Dr. King set for us. If they want to take you to jail, guess what? If there's 1,000 of you, they're going to have to make room. Not that they won't, but if it happens often enough, it'll get tiring to somebody. I heard you mention the boogaloo. I hate that phrase, but I understand it. I would prefer it to be called the running man or the jitterbug, but is that what America's coming to? That's what America's been coming to since 1776.
Yeah. And they built a whole bunch of prisons in Virginia. I was Luke Radowski, wearechange.org or .com. I listened to him quite a bit. And a few weeks ago, he was talking about these prison contracts for a bunch of prisons that they had built in Virginia. And, for like the past... for like the past 5 years, that's...
Your sound really cut out there, Kirby. I appreciate the call. I can't hear anything anymore for some bizarre reason. His volume just cut out completely, but...
It's almost like his headset came out of the jack just a little bit. You ever have that happen to you?
Yeah, good point. It very well could have been that. But he's not wrong. I don't like the idea of the boogaloo either. When framed properly in self-defense, I get it. But I'm not necessarily in favor of it. But there does come a point, I would agree, where you've been pushed around enough and it's time to stand up for yourself.
Yeah,
and I think that's the idea behind the boogaloo. Whether or not it's going to be successful or whether or not it's even going to happen remains to be seen. How far can the American people be pushed before they get sick of it?
And these radical Democrats in Virginia are literally giving a death sentence to the cops that are stupid enough to go enforce all this stuff.
Yeah. 855-450-3733, or you can use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.freetalklive.com. This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number's 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay.
And the state of Virginia is trying to do exactly what, anyone, I don't want to say anyone with the brain because that's not a fair characterization, but...
Well, you can have a brain, but then you get vaccinated, you're given fluoride, you're brainwashed in these halls of indoctrination. I mean, the whole intent of public school is just to dumb you down where the chemicals didn't get you already.
Yeah. And I mean, we've got countless examples of people who have survived horrific dictatorships coming to the people of the United States and saying, hey, it's great you have this thing guaranteeing your right to bear arms. Never give that up. And the state seems to be that's its number one goal, is to, I mean, it's already so severely inhibited the right to bear arms that I'm not sure any sort of actual boogaloo is going to be technologically possible. How do you fight someone who can blow up your entire city from a base in Texas?
Right. From a drone, from a satellite, from I mean, what would be really interesting is if 1,000 people, say 1,000-ish people, showed up with guns, and all of a sudden they all start screaming and falling to their knees in agony and pain because they have these millimeter wave cannons that literally any cell phone tower can do what a millimeter wave cannon can do. In this book that I talked about that Ben Stone, the Bad Quaker, did, Subversion, Sedition, and Simple Sabotage, he talks a whole chapter about millimeter wave cannons. And it sends a very powerful microwave frequency at you, and it feels like a light bulb pressing against your skin. And you can crank these things up, and they will literally fry and burn your skin. And
now, do you remember that show with that ex-Navy SEAL? I think it was called like Super Weapons or something like that.
I don't.
I think they featured this there. It was non-lethal, but it would heat up your skin just to unbearable degrees.
It is very lethal. In fact, you can point it at somebody at a certain frequency. He talks about how you can heat someone's liver up. You can point at the frequency of your liver cells, this millimeter wave cannon. This is, and he's reading straight out of declassified documents from the State Department. And Ben Stone's talking about in the book how you can cause congestive heart failure on someone with 3 to 5 minutes of this device being pointed at him, and days later they have a heart attack, and it's like, oh, guy had too much salt, his liver enlarged, his heart enlarged. And this millimeter wave technology does this. So they got, if they can make it so you mentally cannot think, you physically cannot do anything but run away from the pain through these things set up all around there, and they're already in place. They're called cell phone towers. They just got to crank them up. And it's just, and I'm sure a bunch of people are thinking I'm crazy, and the other people are thinking, wow, tinfoil bodysuit sounds like a good idea right now.
Yeah. Well, so gun rights supporters are preparing to converge on Richmond for a lobbying day and a rally Monday morning. The event, hosted by Virginia Citizens Defense League, is expected to draw thousands of armed demonstrators, some from out of state. Organizers have said that they hope to hold a peaceful event. But Northam said officials have heard reports of out-of-state militia groups and hate groups planning to travel from across the country to disrupt our democratic process with acts of violence. Now, that's a curious thing to say, considering the democratic process is an act of violence. Yeah. How dare they interrupt our act of violence with an act of violence?
We're beyond democracy. We're in a straight-up socialism now. I mean, when Iraq, the people of Iraq vote to kick the United States out, and the United States says, no, we are forcing this democracy down your throat with a barrel of a gun. Yeah, we're not leaving. So we don't have democracy here anymore. It's not mob rule. It's not the majority rules.
No, it's oligarchy.
It's oligarchy, yes. It is the powerful rules. The people who control the cell phone towers, the people who control the Predator drones. What are we going to do? Just let them get away with it? I mean, if I wasn't busy and having things going on in my life, I had a guy actually sponsor me. He says, I will sponsor you. I'll pay for the fuel. I'll buy you a hotel room. If you want to, go down there. He goes, I'll even buy you guys food. He can't do it. He's an older fella. He's in rough shape. And he says, there needs to be a whole bunch of people down there. And
well, it looks like there are going to be. And good. Northam says they are coming to intimidate and to cause harm, which is kind of what the government intends to do. And what it has always done.
You know Virgil Valdula?
I do not.
So he's been a long-time Free Talk Live listener. He calls in a lot. He's been to the Liberty Forum and Pork Fest and stuff. And he told me he grew up in Romania, and they had this takeover of this communist dictator, and the people literally stormed wherever he was and just killed this dude.
Oh yeah, in Romania.
In Romania, yeah. You know, I mean,
I've read bits and pieces about that, but not a whole lot. But yeah, I do remember that they killed their dictator.
Yeah, which should happen to all dictators. I mean, they're no good.
So Northam is raising concerns about a reprise of the deadly violence surrounding the white supremacist march in Charlottesville in August 2017. Charlottesville, that was in South Carolina, right?
Yep.
He stated he said state intelligence analysts have identified threats and rhetoric online that mirror the chatter they were picking up around that time.
So it was Charlottesville, Virginia, actually.
It was Virginia?
Yes.
Okay. Please know that we have been preparing extensively to protect public safety at Monday's rally. But no one wants another incident like the one we saw in Charlottesville in 2017. Interestingly, Martin Luther King Day is Monday.
So, yeah, I mean, I hope there's a lot of people that, you know, have understood Martin Luther King's, you know, passion for freedom. He was killed by the state for talking a little too much freedom. We don't like you talking and getting too much freedom going, so, you know, they offed him. And then they paid out, and the United States government paid out a settlement to his family.
On a Facebook page organizing the gun rights demonstration, again hosted by the Virginia Citizens Defense League, that certainly sounds like a militia. Actually, it sounds kind of like an old ladies' bridge club.
We have a women's defense league here in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And they're about arming women so they are able to defend themselves from rape.
It's a good reason.
Yeah. I mean, you got a 100-pound girl doesn't really have much of a chance against your average 100-some-odd pound girl. Doesn't have much of a chance against your average 250-pound dude unless she's got a gun.
Yeah. So several commenters expressed frustration at Northern's move to restrict guns from the Capitol grounds. One wrote, "This is simply a move to infringe not only our Second Amendment rights, but our First Amendment rights as well." Because one would think if you have the right to protest and petition the government for your grievances or whatever it says in that scrap of paper that people like talking about, and you also have the guaranteed right to bear arms in that same scrap of paper, it seems like they would go together. Like if you have the right to petition and you have the right to bear arms, you would have the right to petition while bearing arms, right?
Right. So there was a guy from Europe who came here to visit this freedom movement.
A guy from where?
Europe.
Okay.
I forget what country now. One of the Norway or something. One of the I don't remember. But he comes and he calls me. A friend of mine. Somebody gives, hey, you got to talk to this guy up in New Hampshire. So he came to New Hampshire. He check out the Free State Project. And he came and we took him out shooting guns. And this is we use these little guns to protect a big gun. And I kept on telling him about the big gun, and he had a great time shooting guns. That was his favorite part of the whole visit. And you want to see the big gun? Oh yeah, I want to see the big gun. So I open up this door to a storage container, and there's a printer, just a printer, just like what's right here, just a regular printer. I go, that's the big gun. And we use these guns to protect a big gun. And it says, this is an assault printer. It says not an inkwell. This is an assault printer. The Founding Fathers, when they said the First Amendment, they didn't know this device was going to exist, that we can just push a button and print out all kinds of propaganda. And, we can get information out to people. It says, but if we don't have a right to bear arms, we don't have a right to speech, we don't have a right to religion, we don't have a right to anything else because we cannot defend him.
That's an awesome way of looking at it.
I was at the Trump rally last summer doing some Free Ross outreach, and one of these coached liberal Democrat dudes was talking about how the Founding Fathers weren't talking about semi-automatic rifles or cartridge guns. They were talking about flintlocks. I said, oh, so you think the First Amendment only protects what's written with an inkwell pen and not on the internet or not by, printed out in mass, copying?
Sadly, that seems to be what a lot of them think. Anyway, what's going on in Russia? I saw this story saying that just about everyone in the Russian government had resigned.
That's what
More
it
on
says.
that in just a moment. This is Free.
Are you sick of hearing the same crap on libertarian podcasts? Inside jokes, interviews of the same person you've heard 50 times? Then you need to listen to the Lava Flow podcast. No nonsense and to the point. Get the information you need and get out. You won't hear the latest libertarian circle jerk news here, but instead hard-hitting anti-statist news with me, Roger Paxton, shooting from the lip. LAVA stands for Libertarian, Anarcho-Capitalist, Voluntarist, and Agrist. And if you think you fit any of these categories, then this is the podcast for you. Listen now at thelavaflow.com to find out what's rustling my jimmies, what's in the news, the latest bad cop, stupid stuff statists are saying, and so much more. You can find out more and subscribe on any podcatcher at thelavaflow.com. That's thelavaflow.com. Part of the Pax Libertas Productions podcast network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That toll-free number is 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay.
And what's going on in Russia, indeed? It seems that Russia's entire government resigned on Wednesday, according to some sources, which is, from what I can tell, it's not quite true. A lot of people did resign, but coming to us from CNN are several news articles about what's going on with Russia. If you follow the links, evidently, the entire Russian government is resigning. Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev announced Wednesday after Putin proposed sweeping reforms that could extend his decades-long grip on power beyond the end of his presidency. Now, we've been through this whole thing already. Didn't this happen in like 2006 when he was like, oh, I'm going to resign from presidency. I'm just going to be the prime minister. Oh, I'm the president again. How did that happen?
In Luke Rudowski's article that I read, yes, he gets into that and talks about how he extended his term years ago somehow. But in the article, I read that he was limited to 2 terms, and his second, I don't know how long the terms are. I didn't catch that, but his second term is up in 2024.
Well, Putin thanked members of the government for their work, but added that not everything worked out. Putin added that in the near future, he would meet with each member of the cabinet. The mass resignation includes Medvedev. I'm not even going to try. So you have the article pulled up in front of you, presumably?
Yes. Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev has made shock and dramatic announcements that he and the entire Russian government is resigning. So it's Medvedev who's saying that he and the entire Russian government is resigning, which
so
I hope is good for the. That would be awesome if that happened. The whole entire federal government of the United States just resigned everybody. Cool.
Yeah, and all of the bureaucracies, everybody resigning, except the problem with that happening in the United States is that it would just leave Donald Trump sitting there without anyone else to oppose him.
Well, he would have no pawns to follow orders, essentially, if everyone resigned. How would he get anything done?
Are all the soldiers resigning? Because that's part of the Russian government.
I don't know. I mean, he said
it's the enforcement
entire government. I mean, this sounds like kind of what Adam Kokesh wants to do when he becomes president. You know,
fire everybody?
Just eliminate it all. Shut it down.
I would like to see it.
I'd like to see it, too.
I would like to see Vermin Supreme as president as well. Congrats to Vermin Supreme, by the way, on winning the primary for the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire.
And I also had read that Vermin had increased the membership of the New Hampshire Libertarian Party by 25%.
I believe it.
Directly, which is pretty cool. But
it's hard not to like him.
The day I did the Guns and Pony March with him in Concord a few months back, they definitely signed up a handful of people for the New Hampshire Libertarian Party. But I don't know if you can do this everywhere, but in New Hampshire, if you're sign up for the New Hampshire Libertarian Party, you can vote in the New Hampshire primary, but you can still also vote in either the Republican or Democrat primary because they essentially, it's
no longer a party.
Right, because they just don't recognize the Libertarians, the Republicans or Republicans. So, yeah, because they're the same thing as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, for sure. They're just oligarchs.
Oligarchs, yeah, kind of like in Russia was an oligarch at one time, or it still is. Who knows? I've never been there. So, in a statement here, state media out an annual State to the Nation address. So
that's like a State of the Union address.
Yeah, so after President Vladimir Putin's annual State of the Nation address, this Medved guy, who is a prime minister. So Putin's the president, and then there's a prime minister, I guess. I'm not sure how their hierarchy works over there.
I'm not either, but as I understand it, Putin did resign, or when he had served his previous terms as president, he became the prime minister.
Oh, okay. Right, yeah, that I read that in this article also. And they also say the ruble slipped about 5%. Now, in this news
what slipped about 5%?
A 0.05%, 0.5%, a 0.5%.
What slipped?
The ruble.
Okay.
The Russian currency.
The Russian fiat, the Russian war dollar.
And if you go to newsforchange.com, the entire Russian, this is Luke Rudowski's website, I believe. In this article, he does have links like highlighted on pretty much everything he says. You can click on it. It brings you to another page and shows you the article where, he's getting this information from. Despite what appears a drastic shakeup afoot, Reuters suggests in part of a plan that could result in Putin extending his power. Now,
I mean, I'm sure that's the goal here.
Well,
Putin is so closely tied to Russia today that I can't imagine anyone else heading up the country.
When you say Russia Today, do you mean Russia as in today or Russia Today, the news channel?
I mean Russia currently.
Okay. That's what I thought. Well, when Reuters suggests, a Reuters, I mean,
I think it's Reuters.
Reuters,
it doesn't
whatever.
Matter.
They're just a CIA, mouthpiece anyways.
Are they?
Best I can tell. I don't know. According to Alex Jones, they are. And a whole bunch of others.
It's hard to take some of Alex Jones's claims 100% seriously at times.
I mean, I don't know. They seem pro-government to me. But
is there a media outlet in the United States that isn't pro-government? I mean, you have the Libertarian Republic headed up by Austin Peterson, but it's also pro-government.
This one here isn't pro-government. Free Talk Live. I can tell you that.
We're also a radio station, not necessarily. We're not a radio station. Sorry, we're a radio talk show, not really a media outlet.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's some good independent media outlets out here, but yeah, all the big ones.
Used to Share's a good one.
All the big ones, all the ones that are controlled by the 6 companies, Clear Channel, whatever, any of them.
Anything to do with the Associated Press, for sure.
Right, and any of them that take advertising from pharma, any of them that are taking Department of Defense advertising, like they have Go Army advertising or National Guard advertising, any of them that are, any, prison industrial complex, like anything mainstream is definitely pro-government because they play ball with government. Fox News, CNN, all of them, CBC, they all are in bed. They all with military industrial complex. They're all essentially owned by, people who own the military complex
and
all that
and
stuff.
All
I mean,
that. Yeah, it's all tied together.
The big stockholder players in all the industrial complexes that are there to enslave us are also the big stockholder players in all of the media industrial complex. And now what's even happening? I've been listening to YouTube for a long time, and a lot of times when I'm working, I'll have like YouTube going because it's simple. It push a button, it goes. There's a few commercials now and then, which is annoying. You
use your phone for this, presumably?
I just use a phone. Like when I'm working on a job site or in a shop, I have either.
I'm always surprised when I pull up YouTube on my phone to find an ad because I've been running ad blocks for so long on my desktop.
I don't run any ad. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
That I had completely forgotten that YouTube even has ads.
Oh, that's interesting.
Until I go to my phone and I listen, I was like, "What the hell is this?"
I wonder if I can run an ad blocker on my phone.
You can, but it's more complicated to set up.
Well,
the phone has to be rooted to do it properly, and it's more of a hassle than it's worth. You can just hit the skip ad button.
What I've been noticing for like the last 4 or 5 months is like when I'm working and then the phone's like far away, I can't reach it. I don't like having a phone right next to me. So I'll have it like a Bluetooth speaker going, and I'll just be doing stuff. It keeps on doing like Fox and CNN and MSNBC, all these like media outlets that I don't even want to hear anything of what they say because everything is just nonsense. It's all baloney. and it's all
and they ignore
lie about
major
everything.
stories
Right.
in favor of stupid ones.
Absolutely.
They're not talking about Jeffrey Epstein any longer. They talked about him very briefly. I mean, they did everything in their power to suppress the Jeffrey Epstein story.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, from firing people to...
And instead now they're like, Bernie Sanders said, well, no one... I don't think most people really care about that. Can we talk about the pedophiles who run the American government, please? Can we get back to that?
And YouTube is becoming all mainstream. So I've been listening, actually, to a lot of Telegram chat channels.
Very cool. More about ways you can avoid mainstream news here in just a moment. 855-450-3730. This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That toll-free number is 855-450-3733. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay.
And I want to tell you about local.bitcoin.com. It's an exchange. Well, I guess it technically is an exchange owned by Bitcoin.com that allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin Cash using dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, bank deposit, bank transfers, remittances, and more. Every communication is encrypted between buyer and seller, and it's a non-custodial exchange, so you always control your own money. Check it out at local.bitcoin.com to get started buying and selling Bitcoin Cash, because it's a trading platform that actually respects your privacy. And I absolutely adore the site. Once more, that's local.bitcoin.com. Go check it out. Stop saying you missed the boat and just get on the stupid boat.
I had a conversation with a guy about this the other day, and we talked. It was Monday night, and Bitcoin Cash was $161. Oh, no. Bitcoin SV was $161. Bitcoin Cash was like $2 something. I was like, wow, Bitcoin SV is worth more than half of what Bitcoin Cash is. What's going on here? And Bitcoin Cash is like $3.25 today, and I just saw on my way to the studio, I'm like, hey, I hope you bought some Bitcoin Cash, because we were standing right next to a Bitcoin ATM when we talked about it. And he just, I missed that boat. And then I said, well, another boat leaves. A block is released all the time, and you can grab another boat anytime you want. Yep.
It always frustrates me to hear people say, I wish I had bought Bitcoin when it was $50, or I wish I had bought it when it was $500, or I wish I'd bought it when it was $5,000. Like, you stupid idiot. You're going to be looking up in 2 years saying, I wish I'd bought it when it was at $10,000. And then in 5 years, you'll be going, I wish I'd bought it when it was at $50,000. That mentality that I don't want to take this risk because it doesn't seem like it's a 100% sure thing, that's what's causing you to miss the boat repeatedly, every single day.
Well, I mean, you could say this about anything. Oh, I should have bought Microsoft stock and, 1980 whatever for $2, or Amazon stock and whenever. I should have bought into the .com before the bubble popped and cashed out. And hey, we can always. Everybody is a great Monday morning quarterback, all the time. And the thing is just the important thing I tell everybody is need to diversify your finances. Just some of it has to be not in fiat, whether it's in gold, like these gold backs. I really like the gold backs. They're really cool.
I do too. I carry a few on me at all times. They're great for tips if you don't mind taking the time to explain to someone what they are, because they're really pretty.
Yeah.
So they're great for tipping females, but you're always going to ask, what even is this?
I went and bought some breakfast this morning, and I left a tip in a tip jar. We just got it to go from a place that we really like in Concord, and I had a couple goldbacks with me. I should have just put one in a jar, and made it known that I was putting this in a jar. And the girls, they know my wife and I, we go in there a lot. But I did pay a couple of kids that helped me work on my house last week in goldbacks. And the one kid, he was like, I don't know if I'm going to come work today. He's not super ambitious. I'm like, dude, I'll pay you in gold. And then he sent me a text back. He said, all right, I'll come work. So I don't know if that's really exactly why he came to work, but he was pretty happy to get these gold bags. He thought they were cool. But getting out of fiat is really important. The world hates the U.S. dollar. When I say the world hates the U.S. dollar, the people around, all the people that are victims of sanctions, all the Iranian people who aren't even in Iran, they're victims of, Indonesia or something? They lost their bank accounts if you're an Iranian. Or,
I'm not sure, but I have good reason to believe that I've sold Bitcoin to Iranians.
Good for you. Thank you for your civil disobedience.
Thank you. Screw the government, man.
Yeah, screw the banks. Screw anyone who wants to harm us. So you got a whole bunch of...
And it's not just us. They want to harm everyone. They want to harm the people of Iran to punish the Iranian government. That's immoral, and I will resist it in any way that I can.
Well, even just look at Venezuela. If you look at all, on Free Talk Live here, we've talked several times about how the people in Venezuela lost an average of 10 pounds over X amount a year or time frame. But you got Maduro.
Because they're socialists, so they have no freaking food.
Well, they're also socialists, but they're also victims of sanctions, too.
That's true.
They are, whether it's, if you have a lot of oil and a lot of natural resources in the ground, you can technically be a socialist country if the people in charge aren't scalping all the money off the top. And if you have very plentiful natural resources, as Venezuela does, as Iran does, as Libya does, you can have these socialist countries. And I'm not pro-socialist.
I'm not either, but in and of itself, socialism isn't impossible.
Right.
I mean, yes.
But it just doesn't work because people get greedy.
Yeah.
And so you look at these press conferences where, back when Maduro got in and Maduro's talking, Maduro is just be getting chubbier and chubbier. And then if you look at the common people in Venezuela, they've been getting skinnier and skinnier. Well, that is, yes, socialism is a part of it, but also the people starve anytime there's sanctions put on them, essentially by the United States, because the U.S. dollar is right now is the psychopathic dictator of the financial world. And if you're not going to comply with the edicts of the U.S. dollar, then you're going to get sanctioned as a nation. And as a people, you're going to get hurt very much. This is why, you ever listen to Ivan on Tech, blockchain Bitcoin guy?
No.
From Sweden? Anyways, he was talking about how a couple weeks ago how Bitcoin is literally bringing $20,000 in Iran with all these sanctions and all this stuff. Now, I don't know how that's figured out. I'm only repeating what some guy said. I don't understand if somebody takes and converts the Iranian local currency to what its value is in USD or whatnot. But the fact that Iran is essentially isolated from pretty much the rest of the world on the legacy fiat system, these people who are holding fiat in Iran are really kind of screwed at them because the rest of the fiat system is just destroying the local Iranian fiat, such as the U.S. dollar is essentially destroying it because they're not allowing these people to trade with others. And the reason Bitcoin becomes so valuable locally there, because Bitcoin doesn't recognize borders. It doesn't care. So get out of fiat and get some what I like to call peer-to-peer, whether it be copper pieces, silver, gold backs. And the easiest thing you can obtain if you are listening to me right
let's
now.
Tell people about these gold backs.
Is Bitcoin.
Because we've alluded to them a few times. I mean, we talked about
it, yeah.
Bitcoin extensively, but we haven't really explained what these gold backs are. They are very much like paper money, except they actually contain within them a certain amount of gold based on the arbitrary denomination. Right. So a $1 gold back has, I think, 1/1000th of a troy ounce of gold.
Correct.
And a $5 note has 1/200th of a troy ounce of gold, going all the way up to, I guess, the $1,000 note, which has a troy ounce of gold woven into it. They're really cool. It's carrying around foldable gold in your wallet.
Do they make a whole 1 troy ounce gold back?
I don't know. I'm sure they do.
Oh, I want to get one someday.
855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live. More about dismantling the Russian government from within in just a moment.
The next generation wallet is coming from Divvy. In just a few taps, you'll be able to send, earn, spend, and exchange digital money in seconds. Send money around the globe with only a swipe. Instantly exchange between Divvy, Bitcoin, and fiat right in the mobile app and withdraw directly to your bank account. Divvy already offers the first one-tap solution for earning passive income with crypto. Multi-tiered masternodes allow everyone to partake in the network. Visit DivvyProject.org. DivvyProject.org.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That toll-free number is 855-450-3733. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay.
And it's difficult to find these Utah Goldbacks that we were talking about. You can order them from various places, but they are really cool, and it is carrying around foldable. It's not even gold-backed currency. It is gold currency.
It's actual gold.
Yeah.
It's a special process. I know Silver Dave is actually really contemplating melting a few down to extract the gold, because it's like, I guess the gold
seems like a lot of trouble. I mean, it's already there and ready to go.
It's like a verification test he wants to do because he don't trust anybody.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure if we'll ever do it, because it's like, we got to basically trash a whole bunch of gold. But the idea is that you would be able to somehow melt it down, and from what I understand, it's like it was like sprayed onto like a polymer paper. The thing about gold is really, really malleable. So like, you could take an ounce of gold and make a wire, I don't know, a couple miles long and very, very, very thin, or something. I mean, they do it. That's why they use it in computers. It conducts well. Right. And you could just you can do a plate. You could plate things in gold to where it's like 200 thousandths of an inch or something thick, the gold, and it makes for a very reliable connection, in computer stuff.
So the entire Russian government has resigned. To get back to this story, do you still have it pulled up in front of you?
I'm getting it there.
All right. We're not exactly sure why, but it seems to be because Putin wants to extend his grasp on power.
Yeah, they're saying despite a constitutional ban currently in effect preventing him from running for more than 2 consecutive terms, it appears a bid for him to handpick a new government and enact reforms that could weaken his future successor. President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday proposed a nationwide vote on sweeping constitutional changes that would shift power from presidency to parliament and the prime minister. And a move,
which is a role that he has fulfilled in the past, right? He has been prime minister of Russia.
That's what the article says. I wasn't aware of that until I read this. I don't really, pay a lot of attention to Russia.
Well, like I said, I remember going through this entire thing a few years ago, probably 6 to 8 years ago, where he was going to resign. He was no longer going to be president. And he did. He became prime minister. And then before anybody knew what was going on, he was president again.
So, because they were talking years ago, Bill Clinton, he could run for president again. There's nothing that says, you can only do 2 terms. You can do 2 consecutive terms, or 2 terms is the limit. But what if you sit out a couple terms and then come back? So it kind of sounds like he did some other.
The American Constitution actually forbids that now, because we did have that president whose name escapes me, and I'm going to get criticized for not remembering every little detail of American history.
FDR, right?
Yeah. He ran for 3 terms. They weren't consecutive, so it didn't count. But the Constitution was changed to prevent anyone else from doing that.
So now that you bring this up, so I do remember when I was in high school, Clinton was president, and they were talking about him running after this was like more, propaganda that was probably being pushed by the school system to, get the, Clinton back in there or something. I'm not really sure. But anyways, getting back to Putin, giving more power to presidency and parliament and the prime minister, a move that could allow him to extend his rule after leaving the Kremlin, Reuters comments. Medved said the government resignation means Putin will decide the new government's makeup, after which
So Putin is going to rewrite the Russian Constitution and decide how it's going to be formed.
He proposed a nationwide vote on sweeping constitutional changes. So it sounds like it might have to be voted on, but, you know.
But the entire government resigned, so who is going to vote?
I guess. It's
just Putin. They like getting out of his way so he can give himself the power that he wants. That's the sense I'm getting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. It's like, all right, we'll let you do what you want. We're leaving. Yeah. And that way we can't look like the bad guys. We're just going to leave. I mean, just kind of.
Well, that way they won't get murdered, presumably, by
maybe
Putin's Secret Service or the Russian equivalent.
Or Hillary Clinton. I mean, you know, there's all these.
Oh, she hated Putin. The 2016 election was an interesting one. I was so focused on Hillary Clinton and her obvious desire to start a war with Russia that I somehow completely missed the fact that Trump wanted a war with China. She was just so extravagant in her claims, saying in one of the debates that she would actually invade Russia, that I completely missed the fact that Trump was like, yeah, we're going to fight China.
There was a clip where she said, when I'm president, we are going to war with Iran. She actually said that.
I mean, they wanted war with Iran for a very long time.
Well, I've just listened to some stuff about Iran, how, the CIA, what they're claiming now is one of their first, actually, Tulsi Gabbard, Dennis Kucinich, and I forget the other guy, were having a talk on this a couple of days ago on the history of this Iran deal. And it was the CIA went in there and, basically destabilized the country in the 50s within a matter of a couple of weeks. And also the American government essentially seized or shut down their bank in New York at the time. And Iran ended up defaulting on, I don't know, some kind of payment of some sort, which further helped destabilize them. And then in the the Shah was installed by essentially the CIA, and it became this is where a lot of this Muslim radical jihadist stuff started popping up, because this guy, he was an extremist that the United States put in there because they wanted control of the resources. They wanted, British Petroleum was very instrumental in making sure that oil was essentially controlled, and then there's the whole petrodollar and that, and then there was a revolution, I guess, in '79 or something, and the American government don't like the people who've been there since.
Yeah, it's a mess,
and we should just leave everyone alone.
That would be ideal.
Trade with everybody. Don't fight with anybody.
It's just like the free market handle things.
Yeah.
Which is essentially what we do when we sell Bitcoin to people in Iran and China and Hong Kong.
Well, and any time...
I absolutely know for a fact that I have sold Bitcoin to a Chinese national.
Good.
Yeah.
They need it.
I am proud of that fact.
That is great activism.
Screw the Chinese government for it.
Yes, screw them all for it. I mean, the fact that people doing peer-to-peer transactions, whatever it may be, and Bitcoin is the easiest and simplest peer-to-peer transaction you can do, because we don't have to meet in person. We don't have to know each other.
Nope.
I can literally trade with someone on the other side of the world. No government's involved. And just these peer-to-peer transactions are what is, I believe, it really helps in bringing the war machine down. We have to start trading outside of the dollar. I mean,
can you imagine if the U.S. government had to pay its soldiers in Bitcoin?
So my mom said this to me one day. She's like,
it would constantly be asking you, how are we going to acquire this amount of Bitcoin? We can't force people to pay taxes into it because we can't track it. So we have to have these lotteries and things like that to raise this money, and it's never going to cover the cost of these $12 trillion wars.
Right.
And that's by design. That's why we like Bitcoin.
Yeah, I got into an argument with my mom years ago and was talking about Bitcoin. She's like, so what's the government supposed to do? Pay the troops in Bitcoin? I says, yeah, that'd be good, because they wouldn't be able to. They couldn't pay the troops, and they couldn't go over there and, start murdering farmers in Afghanistan, because they're not interested in growing opium. They got GMO opium plants, like Monsanto style. I don't know if Monsanto created it, but like Monsanto engineered. Of course
they did. I would not be surprised if Monsanto created them.
Pest resistant, so they can. Yeah, I mean, Afghanistan is covered in heroin, and it's essentially.
But it wasn't under the Taliban. The Taliban had almost entirely eliminated opium from Afghanistan.
Right.
The United States government was like, oh no, we need this stuff pumping into Russia. So we're going to take over, and we're going to restore the opium fields.
And they need to pump it into the United States, too. Because if you have a loved one that's a junkie, guess what you don't do? You don't pay attention to government.
That's a good point. What do you think about the opium trade? 855-450-3733, 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That toll-free number is 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay.
And I hope to see you at Fork Fest coming up in just about 6-ish months. You can join libertarians, anarchists, voluntarists from June the 29th until July the 5th for Fork Fest 2020 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. You're doing Man Camp again this year?
I will be doing some, it won't be as intense as it was last year because it was just way too much.
It was huge last year.
Yeah, now I did it once. I kind of know what I got to do, and I got some volunteers.
Awesome.
So, yeah, Man Camp will happen again.
So various people are doing various things, but no one is planning the festival. No one is planning Fork Fest because it's decentralized. No one is in charge. People are just showing up and they're doing a thing.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It's
Ladies' Night Out is taking place at Fork Fest this year. It's going to be awesome. It seems that we're going to have the vaudeville group, the Lawless Libertines, perform at least one of these nights. We intend to rent out the pavilion.
Good.
On July the 3rd for them to perform.
That's awesome. Yeah, I looked into renting out the pavilion, but on the weekend.
Is it 500 or 1,000 per day? I don't recall.
Well, so I paid $495 for the pavilion 2 years ago for one day for my wedding.
Okay, so 500.
And that was allegedly the Pork Fest price they had given me.
Okay.
Is what they had said. It was, the weekend, the Father's Day weekend when I did that. And then this year, the pavilion is occupied for Saturday because there's a big fireworks display, and I guess those guys use the pavilion for staging and setting up and that. So,
well, we don't want to do it on July the 4th because we figure as Fork Fest, there are going to be countless things going on July the 4th. And July the 5th, of course, is the last night, or it may be the last day. I don't know. But either way, lots of stuff going to be happening that day as well. So we figured July the 3rd is the perfect day for that. There's all sorts of other things going on, though. You can just relax and go camping if you don't want to deal with any of that other stuff, or just create whatever experience or event you would like others to have.
I actually saw the Lawless Libertines do a New Year's Eve show.
Oh, really?
It was pretty cool. A lot of my friends are there. It was fun, and I'm really happy to hear. This is the first I'm hearing that you guys might, or they may do something. I'm glad they're going to.
Ladies' Night Out hasn't made an official announcement yet because we're still working out all of the details, but for sure, the Lawless Libertines will be at Fork Fest.
And they have a routine, and they've already organized, a handful of things, so they're getting better and better each time.
Yeah. So it's going to be a great event. We're going to be selling wine, of course, unlicensed, and other forms of alcohol, certainly. There'll probably a ticket price to get into the door to pay the Lawless Libertines for their act. And all that. But it's going to be great.
I would imagine they pre-sell tickets.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, you can connect with other Fork Festers via the unofficial Telegram chat or the Fork Fest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Again, that's forkfest.party. So, talking about Russia here.
Yes.
And just the bizarre nature of things going on in Russia and how envious we are as anarchists to see the entire Russian government resign.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Russia versus the United States, 70 years ago and today, the roles, if you just look at the financial situation, if you look at the amount of, and even the social situation, the roles of Russia and the United States today and 70 years ago has flipped. So, Russia had, very high debt, almost no gold reserves. And what essentially, in the 1950s, 1960s or whatever, what essentially caused Russia to collapse was a couple of things. And one thing was the fact they didn't really have any gold. They didn't have any real money back then. And the Russian currency, their fiat, this ruble, the world just essentially turned their back on it, and they really couldn't do anything. And in the 80s,
well, the world did it, but the West did, because that was
that's more accurate.
Capitalism versus communism thing that was going on then.
So the European Union, the European Central Bank and its puppets, and the Federal Reserve and its puppets were like, yeah, we're not going to, do anything with this Russian ruble. So, and essentially, because there was no gold behind it, nobody really used it anymore. It didn't make any point to use it on an international level, and their money hyperinflated. And when I was in first grade, 1986, I can remember sitting in a classroom. They rolled the TV into the classroom, and they brought other classes in there, and they said, we live in a free country. Look what's going on in Russia because of communism, because of their building their military and putting all their money into the military. I was in first grade, and there is a reporter talking to a guy who's got a wheelbarrow full of money. And it was enough money a couple years ago to buy a house, and he was hoping it would buy a loaf of bread. And this was when I was a little kid.
Well, we've seen the same thing in the United States. It's just been slower and a little bit less drastic.
Well, so in Russia, they had generations and generations of entitled people who, because under socialism or communism, whatever you want to call it, they're both the same thing as far as I'm concerned. Russia, the government controlled the means of production. So it was, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and this is how it is. And so what happened is there was no incentive for anybody to make a profit. There was no incentive for anybody to, get out there and do anything, because the government controlled all means of production. You couldn't just go start a business on your own, from what I understand, and I could be wrong. Well,
you can't do that here in the United States as well.
So it's certainly very much like that. I mean, I do that. There are people who do that,
okay,
but this
fair.
is where I say the social roles have flipped. So when Russia really collapsed, what had happened is droves of people who were hungry and starving, and who are, third and fourth generation of people who didn't really know how to work, because the government always told them what job to go do and kind of instructed them, and they got a paycheck whether they did a job right or not, whatever the job was. The doctor got paid the same as the garbage man, is what was told to me when I was a little kid by my grandfather in Russia, and that's the way it worked. These people just basically went and looted and destroyed anybody that seemed like they had any wealth. So the guy who had the jewelry shop, or the watchmaker, or the furniture craftsman, or whoever, their own people ended up killing them and wiping them out. And then they went out to the farms, and a lot of the farmers, there was no way they could defend their farm. First off, they were unarmed. And, and the people that did this I'm going to compare them to the people that are mostly in inner city America, who are walking around the local grocery store on welfare day in New Hampshire, go to any grocery store on the 5th of the month, and it is just loaded with a whole bunch of people you never see in that grocery store any other day of the month, because that's when the welfare cards get all recharged, is on the 5th. Yeah. And you go there, and these are the people that are going to go hungry. And a lot of them, to me, look like, they couldn't change a tire. They've never gotten greasy. They probably never broke a sweat. And then some of them are our grandmothers, and legitimately disabled people. Those are the real victims. But when these able-bodied people that don't work because they don't know how to be productive, because they went to school for some nonsense like underwater basket weaving or whatever, when they get hungry, they're going to go take it from whoever they think has it. So if you're the guy with a nice house and a nice car, they're probably coming there. For example, that's essentially what happened in Russia. The other thing that the U.S. has...
It's also what happened during the French Revolution.
It's what happened everywhere, where you have these generations of people who just don't have any desire to build their own stuff. When the free market is eliminated, I mean, what's the point in doing something if it's all going to be taken from you?
Yeah.
I mean, I know people who are my age.
Well, that's always been the issue with, these hippie communes and things like
right.
that. They're not really... They're attracting the burned out engineers and the burned out scientists and things like that, but they're not attracting the engineers,
right,
the scientists, the doctors, the lawyers. Well, we don't need lawyers. Shoot them all.
Right.
But the professional people, they're not attracting those.
And a lot of the professional people today are these, the only reason they have a profession is because they're in what I call the parasite class. They're working in government. Oh, I got a doctorate in art or a master's in art, so I go make $80,000 a year teaching kindergartners how to finger paint. It just doesn't make any sense. Then the other flip on the financial side, but the flip between Russia and the United States is right now, Russia has a lot of gold and they have not much debt. So they're like ounces of gold to debt ratio is like something like $6,000, according to Max Kaiser. And he was talking about, I don't know, some reports. And also according to like an M3 report issued by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, that the United States debt to gold ratio is essentially about $70,000 an ounce if you take the amount of gold that the United States allegedly has on deposit in Fort Knox.
And that's allegedly.
Allegedly, compared to the debt, is like $70,000 an ounce. The roles, both socially and financially, of the United States and Russia between today and, a half a century ago have literally flipped.
And that's not going to end well for the United States.
Have you heard of LibertyCon? LibertyCon is not only a convention with great speakers like Whole Foods CEO and co-founder John Mackey and Nobel Prize winner Vernon Smith, but it's also unique because you get a chance to network with more than 70 pro-liberty organizations, one-on-one for the purpose of career advancement, business, and internship opportunities. Visit LibertyCon.com and use code FTL for a $10 discount on your registration. Learn more at LibertyCon.com.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number's 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay.
And have you heard about this Kentucky student who was expelled from a private Christian school over a rainbow shirt and cake?
No, I haven't, but that school should have the right to do that.
I agree. It's super entertaining how upset people are about it. A Louisville, Kentucky high school student coming to us from Fox News is claiming that she was expelled over a photo of her posing with her birthday cake because the cake and the sweater she was wearing were both decorated with rainbows. If she's correct, that's an odd thing to get expelled over, especially for a high school girl, right? They like rainbows and unicorns and puppies and crap.
I mean, my wife wears shirts like that. My 5-year-old niece wears shirts like that. We just had a baby shower, and there was like, must have been 8 people, ladies wearing, and young girls wearing shirts that fit that description. I mean, I got baby clothes that fit that description.
So the private Christian school denies the allegations and says that there's more to it than that. So Kayla Kinney was celebrating her 15th birthday with her family when her mom snapped a photo of her smiling with her cake and posted the picture on Facebook. She was happy. She looked beautiful, the mother said. The mother said that shortly after she posted the photo, she was contacted by the head of Whitefield Academy, who informed her that Kinney, who had been attending the private school for 4 years, was expelled because of the social media post. And presumably it's because the rainbow is a symbol adopted by LGBT culture.
Yeah, I mean, they shouldn't be mad at the kid if they for having a rainbow. If anything, these guys should be mad at, the LGBT culture for adopting the rainbow. I mean, children have loved rainbows before the LGBT folks adopted it, and like, really, I drove by a church this morning. In Concord, it was a big rainbow flag out there, and it said, "All are welcome here." I
mean, there's one of those out in front of the studio here. Well, it's not rainbow, but I mean, it's an anti-racism sign. Come to think about it, but it's "All are welcome here."
Yeah, it was a big banner. It said "All are welcome here." and it was something Baptist church, and was it? I don't know. I shouldn't say it was bad. I don't know. It was some church, some like Catholic looking Christianish type church, and I drove by it and I was like, oh, those guys are cool. They don't hate anybody. I mean, it's
a nice gesture for sure, especially coming from a Baptist church, because those historically have been sort of at the forefront of the anti-LGBT conversation. But according to Alford, she claims the Kentucky school informed her that the color of her daughter's cake and the sweater she was wearing was demonstrating a posture of morality and cultural acceptance contrary to that of Whitefield Academy's beliefs, because the rainbow is often used as a symbol for LGBTQ+. So cultural acceptance is contrary to Christians, according to this private school.
Well, it's contrary to this school. I don't think that this school, can dictate what's contrary to Christians.
That's true. I've met a large number of Christians who would say that this school is wrong.
I am interested to see how many folks that send their children to this school, because this is going to be a great example, if we just watch this a little bit, of what should happen when schools do things that people think are wrong. Now, if the public school does this kind of shenanigans, are people going to pull their kids out of the public school?
Well, a school is more likely to expel a student for refusing to wear a rainbow, aren't they? A
Right.
public school?
Well, it doesn't matter, what's going on. It's just a fact that, there's no victim. There, nothing's harmless here. And if I was sending my kids to that school, before I pulled my kid out of the school, I would give them a chance to redeem themselves and say, hey, you're really going to expel a kid for having a colorful cake and a colorful shirt with all the colors on it? You
Not even at
against colors?
School.
It wasn't even at school?
No, it was at her home.
Really?
And she posted the picture to Facebook.
I really hope people pull their kids out of the school, and I hope there's an article written about it and it's reported on. You and I here in New
What is
Hampshire
the name of that designer who makes all of the notebooks for girls? Do you know?
No, I have no clue.
I don't either, but it's filled with like rainbows and unicorns and that kind of, and flowers and
I'm gonna know though,
stuff,
because I'm gonna have a little girl.
Yeah, that 15-year-old high school girls just love. So it wouldn't necessarily implicate that she might not even support LGBT. I mean, let's be honest, she's a 15-year-old girl, so she's Gen Z, and she absolutely supports LGBTQ rights. But the rainbow here isn't indicative of that.
And who cares if it even was? Who cares if it was, say, I love my gay friends, and there was a rainbow, right? Who cares?
Lisa Frank is the name I was looking for. Thank you, Sammy, because I was never going to remember it.
I really hope that people pull their kids out of this school. It'd be no different if there was the baker down the road wouldn't bake a rainbow cake for my gay friends that are getting married. I would make it a point not to do business with them, and I would make it a point to tell everybody that I know not to do business with them. I hope this happens with this school.
That is conspicuously left out of this article, is how the family is really reacting to the fact that the school does not want her daughter to be accepting of LGBTQ people. That's the question I have. Okay.
You know what my question is? What would Jesus do?
Jesus would get his kids away from the Romans to be educated, certainly.
Right.
So in a statement to Fox News, however, the school maintains that the decision was not solely for a social media post, but because of violations of the student code of conduct numerous times over the last 2 years. In the fall, we met with the student to give her a final chance to begin to adhere to our code of conduct. Unfortunately, she did not live up to the agreement and therefore has been expelled. It doesn't specify what she was doing, what this 15-year-old girl was doing that so badly violated their code of conduct that they had to expel her. But evidently, the rainbow sweater was just one step too many.
Now, is this one of these schools where it's like you got to wear like a brown shirt and a gray skirt or something?
I don't know.
Like they have like a uniform or an outfit, or?
That's more true in public schools in my experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was, what they called freaks where I was from, but it's essentially a goth. So I wore my big black Jinko pants with 50-inch bottoms and all of that, and I love them.
Yeah, a bunch of buckles hanging off them and like loops. And there were some kids in my school that did that.
I still have some.
Okay.
And then they implemented school uniforms.
Oh.
And the entire reason they implemented school uniforms, by the way, was because the girls at our school just could not resist wearing pajama bottoms as pants. That was almost 100% the reason.
There was definitely a handful of kids that wore like sweatpants, but the big thing in my school, I graduated high school in 1998, and it was like when I was a freshman in high school or in 8th grade, we were 8th grade in our high school. Most of the kids in my 8th grade class, dressed up like they were, homies from Compton, and, Palmer's like basically, a redneck, Massachusetts, Western Mass hick town. But a lot of these kids, dressed up like they were on a crisscross, MTV rap video, or the way I put it, like that they were looking for a boyfriend and they were in some prison gang because, they wore their pants down. The style was wear your pants down below your actual butt cheeks, and then you could see like the whole form of the guy's like butt cheeks in his boxer shorts.
Have you seen the clip of the Booty Warrior from one of those prison documentaries where he talks about that?
Well, this is old, right?
Yeah, it's probably 10, 15 years old at this point.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, and so I had an uncle who was in jail when I was a kid, and I would tell him about these guys. He was like, "Oh, well, that means he wants to be someone's B," And so I tell that to my buddies, and they started pulling their pants up.
So the mother does ask, what we teach our kids? What would Jesus do? And what would Jesus do here? More on this in just a moment. 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number is 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay.
And LibertyCon is coming up. It's a unique Liberty Convention, April the 3rd through the 5th in Washington, D.C., for people who want to network with more than 70 pro-liberty organizations for the purpose of career advancement or business and internship opportunities. You can hear from a list of incredible speakers such as John Mackey, Whole Foods CEO and co-founder, who will speak on conscious capitalism, Vernon Smith, who won the Nobel Prize in economics and will speak on alternative markets, and Miriam Issa, and so many more. Visit libertycon.com for more details on additional speakers and events, and use code FTL for a $10 discount on your registration. Student travel scholarships are available, and discount rooms for everyone at the Marriott Marquis. Save with registration at libertycon.com. Use code FTL for a $10 discount. I'm looking forward to it. I think I'll be going. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, let's get right into the phones. We've got Cameron calling from Indiana. Cameron, you're on Free Talk Live.
The uncontested absurdities of today are the accepted slogans of tomorrow.
Can you repeat that one more time?
I thought you would have had it memorized. The uncontested absurdities of today are the accepted slogans of tomorrow, like LGBT and calling a he a she.
Okay.
WWJD, he called Jay Loon a liar and a loser to his face, not to mention the jackboot thug. Why don't you be a man once and have a conversation with somebody that calls into challenging you rather than...
What are you challenging me on?
And then saying, well, your monologue about Russia just is your typical stupidity of the stereotypical brain that is inside just between your two ears.
So tell me where I was wrong.
Yeah, James, will you actually challenge him on something?
Aria?
A blanket of MRSA? I have a good immune system. I can kick MRSA's butt.
Made a blanket generalization of the country of Russia. And then compared it and said that the United States has flipped roles with them. Really?
Financially and socially, yes.
Economies and better educated people than Russia, which is not a third world country, but a second world one.
I don't know if I can believe that because James from Russia doesn't call, but James from the United States does.
So I know Russian folks.
Russia. Let me just
Are Russians as stupid as Americans?
I think they're actually smarter. They're not vaccinated like they are in America.
They're certainly better chess players.
May I speak? I didn't call any Russians stupid.
No, I know you didn't.
Make a generalization that it's a second world country with first world oil wealth. But as far as Russia and the United States having flipped roles, you can go over to Russia right now, Jay Loon, and have a radio program that is vehemently anti-government, that disparages and slams the government on a daily basis.
Yeah, I agree with you, James. I didn't say that the roles of civil liberties were flipped.
James, you got to stop talking. James, you have to stop talking and let Jay respond to your statements. No, let you stop talking for a moment. Don't make me put you on hold, James. I don't want to do that. Let James respond to your comment.
So you had said, you couldn't get on a radio in Russia and have an anti-government broadcast. I do not disagree with you there. What I had to restate what I said about Russia, where Russia and the United States has flipped roles, is financially in the fact that the debt to gold ratio of the nations has flipped, and the social capability. Because today we have a lot of people my age and younger who are not willing to work, either because they're lazy, they believe that someone like Bernie Sanders is going to come along and just give them whatever. And that's essentially what was going on in Russia before they collapsed. You had a bunch of people who had not been developing skills. Because they didn't have to, they just got fed. Today we have a lot of people who do not have skills. This is why skilled labor is so hard to find. The marketplace for skilled labor is very tight. Now, when it comes to civil freedoms and civil liberties and rights to freedom of speech and things like that, Russia is not good. They're killing or putting people in prison for, being gay or speaking out. It's still going on. I do agree with you on James, but I just said debt to asset ratio, or gold to debt ratio, financially, and the essentially the social diversity has flipped, in my opinion. Now, if you can correct me on those, I'd love to hear about that.
As the audience can honestly say, you just wanted another 5-minute monologue and didn't let a caller speak at all. You instantly interrupted them and repeated your nonsense.
Okay, tell me where I'm wrong.
If anybody else in the listening audience thinks that Russia has a stronger economy because they have more metal that's called gold in their reserves and have less debt than we do, when, yes, I'll grant you we have a greater debt to gold ratio in the United States of America.
Who is we?
We also have an economy that is so much bigger than Russia. We have multiple states with bigger economies that are more productive on a daily basis than Russia has been in the last 70 years combined.
Perhaps, but the United States does not have nearly the amount.
Let me speak, Aria.
Let me tell you where you're wrong, though.
A name that you got, by the way. I bet when you lived in Vegas and saw Aria Casino every day when you drove past it, and you said, "I'm going to name myself Aria and call myself a she," and a redneck from Massachusetts who is uneducated boob who actually believes 9/11 was an inside job. What do the Russians think about 9/11 being an inside job?
They will tell you it was an inside job.
Really?
Yeah, then Vladimir Putin actually headed up the UN. Will you let people respond, James? James, shut up.
Let me speak, Ari.
No, chill out. Vladimir Putin was actually at the UN demanding an independent investigation into September 11, 2001, because he said the United States was likely involved or turned a blind eye to it.
Again, are you citing the UN? When do you ever cite the UN except for when it agrees with something?
I didn't cite the UN. I cited Vladimir Putin.
Have you been drinking, James?
Of course he has. He's on his. You didn't hear? He's on his 73rd DUI now.
You always have, Jay Loon, because you're a loser and a liar. Like I said, WWJD. You don't have anything but smear itself.
No. Yeah, but you know what he doesn't have, James? And thank you for the call. We're going to move on now. But you know what he doesn't have? A 73rd DUI.
I don't have any DUIs. I don't have a driver's license.
It's sad. Vladimir Putin did, in fact, stand in front of the UN and demand an independent investigation into 9/11. And it was actually the United States and Israel, for what it's worth. If I remember, Israel was involved, who blocked the attempt.
I don't think Crazy James even listens to what anybody says, because you clearly said that very precisely. And he's like, you're quoting the UN? No, you were quoting Putin speaking to the UN.
Yeah. As far as September 11, 2001 goes itself, I don't see many ways of escaping the almost certainty that the United States government either allowed it to happen or caused it to happen.
And no matter what that part of it was, they certainly didn't let that catastrophe go to waste, and they were very prepared to implement all kinds of things.
Yep.
To
what are
take
your
our
thoughts
freedoms.
on it? Are we lunatics, or is James the lunatic? 855-450-3733. But don't call in and tell us that James isn't the lunatic, because he's definitely the lunatic.
I want to tell you about my favorite cryptocurrency wallet, Edge Wallet, at edge.app. Edge is the wallet I use more than any other, and that was true long before Edge Wallet became a sponsor of Free Talk Live. Edge Wallet allows you to buy, sell, trade, and securely hold your cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, tokens, Monero, Ripple, Dash, Bitcoin Cash, and more. It's available for both Android and iOS, and you can download it via the Play or App Store or via Edge Wallet's website, edge.app. Secure your freedom with Edge Wallet.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. That number's 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay.
And the next generation wallet is coming from Divvy. In just a few taps, you'll be able to spend, earn, store, and exchange digital money in seconds. Divvy says you'll be able to send money around the globe in only a swipe and instantly exchange between Divvy, Bitcoin, and fiat right in the mobile app and withdraw it directly to your bank account. There is no need to wait, though, as Divvy already offers the first one-tap solution for earning passive income with their multi-tiered master nodes that allow anyone to earn by supporting the Divvy network. When the new wallet launches, because of Divvy's relationship with Western Union, it will be available in 200 countries, including the United States. You can learn more at diviproject.org. That's DIVI project.org. Before we get into the next news story, though, let's get right back into the phones. We've got Dan calling from Nebraska. Dan, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hold on one sec.
Yeah, can't really do that, Dan.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
You're
Hello?
on Free Talk
Okay.
Live.
I'm Dan. Thank you, Free Talk Live. You know, it's been a long time, and I actually feel I haven't listened really since James used to be a caller. Is he calling back in again? Is he a reg again?
I don't know. I wouldn't say a regular again, but he does call again.
Occasionally.
Yes.
All right. Well, anyways, I want to talk about that story about that chick who got expelled.
Right.
Because
you're talking about the 15-year-old who was expelled from the private Christian school for having a rainbow sweater and a rainbow cake. Correct?
That's right. I understand, first off, in a way where you guys are coming from, and it's been part of, obviously, as I've heard the show, but I think I have to, I can't help but feel some type of like need to take like, you know, the left side of this one, because there's a certain level at which I get like the wonky stuff, but there's also a certain level at which there's a struggle for power between, you know, two different parts of the culture, and I don't want to let the Dominionists win. You know what I mean? I think in a way.
So what would you say is the left position on this, that the kids should not be expelled?
Kids should not be expelled.
Well, I mean, the kid can just enlist in a public school.
Or go to another private school.
That's true, but it's not about that. It's about that there are not going to be any places in the future where, you know, queer symbology, if that's what you're using for or not, is going to get you kicked out of school.
In the long run, I think you're correct.
Well, the market, you know, I'm curious to see what the free market does with this particular, you know, scenario, because, like I said before, if my kid was in that school, I would definitely have an issue with it. I'm not saying I can't make the decision right here. I kicked a kid out of my school. There might be some really wonderful things about that school, but I would at least go explain to the directors of the school or whatever how I have a problem with it, maybe then I would make my decision to remove my kid from that school if that was the situation. And that being said, if there's, people could sway that, but there also might be, some big benefactors to this school that give it a lot of money every year that are like, hey, we really hate gay people and all that stuff, and we don't want any of that things happening. So maybe, that is the motivation. I mean, anytime you can't understand something, I've known, especially anything political or whatever, it's like, well, follow the money, and that'll usually explain if you can follow the money. That usually explains it for me anyways.
I think
don't know.
The free market has been pretty clear on the subject for sure. Chick-fil-A, of course, no longer is opposing LGBT groups. I imagine the Salvation Army will come next because people stopped going to Chick-fil-A. I don't understand why people go to Chick-fil-A in the first place, but a lot of people do apparently. But a lot of people refuse to go because it's a hate chicken sandwich. And you don't need a side of hate with your chicken.
No, hate is terrible for you.
Yeah. And the same is true with the Salvation Army. It's got a side of hate to it, so people find other organizations to which to give their money. And
Jay, I agree with what you're saying about how there's probably some sort of some type of benefactorial thing that kind of keeps this idea or this position for them to have probably artificially held out longer in the market, if that's what we're going to say.
Sure, but those reserves run dry,
But ultimately,
it's the reason capitalism ultimately
is
equalizes. The rich, the ultra rich, can't just keep spending all the money to influence the economy unilaterally indefinitely. They're going to run out. That's always the main criticism of anarcho-capitalism is, okay, well, you got somebody who's got 99% of the wealth. Okay, that's fine, because in 20 years they'll have spent all of that. And if there's anybody in this society with a brain,
they will figure out how to hold on to their feudal fiefdom. Okay,
not in true capitalism.
That's not what I want to get. That's not what I want to get to, though, because
but it's all related.
About the actual topic we're talking about.
Okay,
and here's what it is. I think that there's a theme that runs across a lot of different parts of our politics right now, where you're starting to see a type of right wing that is kind of going out the window, but it is trying to usurp power for itself very quickly, kind of almost like the midnight judges at the beginning of this country with John Adams. I feel like there's a midnight judge situation where people who can see the writing is on the wall for their ideas about politics, culture, and everything like that at large, trying to usurp power and just hold it so that they can keep our country in chains basically until...
Well, of course. I mean, did liberals expect the white supremacist cis heteropatriarchy to go down without a fight? Is that what they expected?
But that's why I have to take this fight even to this school, is to show that everywhere where their hegemony is, we're ready to bring the fight there.
Okay.
See, I think that this stuff
I think giving them your money to educate your daughter is not taking the fight to them. It's bowing down to them. If you don't like what they're doing, stop giving them your money.
Yeah, vote with your dollar.
Don't say you're fighting them while you're like, no, we must continue giving them this girl's parents' money.
I don't think
that's how we're going to fight them. But that's literally what you want to do. She should be pushed back into this school.
Someone who will put those. The fight is to vote for people who will put those protections in, so this problem doesn't even happen in the first place. It's for the
but we don't need those protections. We don't need the government to come along and put those protections in, dude. We don't need that.
Yes, we do.
Why?
Do it.
What good has the government's protections ever done for anyone? Is the government protecting black people with the civil rights era? Has that done anything to keep the black people out of the American population, prison population?
It's done that.
Will you let me finish the question before you start answering? Because I don't know if you've checked the American prison population lately, but it's overwhelmingly black.
Yeah, the war on drugs is targeted at black people. Planned Parenthood is targeting at reducing black people.
These protections for the minority communities in the United States actually done when the state simultaneously is targeting those minority communities?
And
it's like giving them a gift with one hand and shooting them with the other.
Not really, because the government isn't just one big homogenous thing. There are different parts that we can seize and use them against each other even. You know, there are different ways that we take power in different forms and then use them to affect things in other parts of the government. And, you know, it starts with all types of politics. My idea is to hope, ideally speaking, we would just have a good turnout and then just get enough political power to just use it and just use it really.
To just make everyone obey, right? That's the goal here, right. To just make everyone obey. That's horrible, Dan.
I mean, it's worked for the capitalists, hasn't it?
Well, we haven't had capitalism in this country since at least 1864, best I can tell.
Had capitalism.
Dan, thank you so much for the call. I absolutely abhor what you said. I find it reprehensible and disgusting. You want to get this great big turnout and just seize power and make people obey. I think you should reflect on that and why you think that you're the best person to make the decisions about how other people should live. 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. If you're quick, you can probably still get in on the air with us. That number is 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Jay.
I want to say thank you to RC. He is tonight's amplifier. He is a silver amplifier, which means he gives $10 per month to the AMP program. You can find that at amp.freetalklive.com. Now, AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. So if you like Free Talk Live, because we are the only national talk radio show where you can call in and talk about whatever you want, even if you're a lunatic like James Whittakin and you don't really have anything relevant to say, we'll put you on the air as long as you're interesting and entertaining. So if you like that, if you like the idea of being able to talk about, express whatever opinion you happen to have, consider contributing to the AMP program at amp.freetalklive.com. All we ask is $5 a month. RC has gone beyond that and is a silver amplifier. So, RC, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
This last caller who called in, he had, was talking about, essentially the divide between, like the straight and the LGBT community. And I believe all these divides, whether it's divide between sports ball team A and sports ball team B, divide between red and blue, divide between white and not white. I think that there's a lot of interest out there to subsidize these divides, to essentially encourage these divides.
Sure, because what is the quote from Edgar Allan Poe, The Fall of the House of Usher? A house divided against itself can't stand. No, that was Lincoln, not House of Usher.
Yeah, there's all kinds of really good quotes about that stuff. And, this is, started right very soon in school. Like, in school, it's, everybody's on a team and you got to be a team and it's this team versus that team. And, you need to beat that team. And, then it's not really publicized, but like it's, when I was in high school, I mean, there was definitely a lot of hatred because if you like disliked the town of Ware, which was our rival, it's like Yankees versus, Red Sox or whatever, these two neighboring towns, we were like really pushing to disliking people from that town. It was kind of an agenda, and it wasn't, you didn't dislike them because they were bad people. You just disliked them because we were the blue team and they were the green team. And the whole thing of the individual means nothing with all these, public, subsidized, government subsidized, sports is where a lot of it starts. I know a lot of people get upset when I say that because they love their sports ball and they worship their sports teams. But
sports ball.
But the whole sports thing is like where the conquer and divide of the other team starts, and there's no individualism, at all. And I
hate to cut you off, but
go ahead.
Let's get into the phones. We got Carlos calling from Florida. Carlos, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hello?
Hi, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Oh, thank you. Hey, I'd like to talk about immigration.
Okay.
I love immigrants.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
No. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
I'd just like to talk about the quality of the immigrants that we tend to absorb and and what that's going to have what effect that would have on our electoral politics.
Go for it.
All right. So, hey, I'm actually Cuban.
Okay.
My parents were driven out when Castro, he told everyone that wasn't a communist to leave Cuba, and that was my parents. My parents were among those people. I'm
Are you about to say something racist, Carlos?
No. I'm not. I can't be racist. I'm not white.
See, that's about what I expected.
I'm not capable of it. Anyway, my point is that that during that situation, my parents were chased. They were both medical doctors, and I'm a doctor. Anyway, my point is that bringing these people, these people from the South America, these people are not capitalists. They have been voting for socialist and communist regimes.
Yes, from which they are now fleeing.
I'm
not sure I believe that.
So they wrecked their own country, and they're like, okay, that didn't work. Let's get the hell out of here.
I've met a lot of people from Central America and Mexico and worked with them. I have never, ever met any of these guys that they hate socialism. They hate the fact that government controls means of production. When I was in Colorado, I worked with Mexicans, folks from Peru, and they love the idea that you could keep money. They love the idea that you didn't have, but these people worked. They came here to work.
I'm not. Yeah, they came here to work, but like they're coming here to work. I mean, they expect things that. I'm not trying to say you're wrong, dude.
It's
not
just my experience is all it is.
Blow you up on your own show. Hey, man, thanks for having me on.
But if they're coming here to work, then
they're coming here to work.
The problem?
That's totally true. But they also they're coming from a place where they're not coming here because they had a better deal back home, right?
Right.
Yeah, I agree. The better deal is here.
So they want a better life and they want to work. I swear, Carlos, I'm not trying to be difficult. I legitimately do not see the problem.
No, I know you don't. It's clear you can't see the problem.
What is the problem, Carlos?
The problem is that they come here and they sign up for social programs and they work under the table.
I'm okay with that. Bleed the state dry and don't give it any money while you do it.
Now, all the guys
I want to thank those immigrants for their service.
Gracious. Oh my goodness! What a statement to make. So you're willing to let these people come? Hold on. I'm a second generation migrant. You're willing to let these people come in here, work for less money than the people.
I want the Americans who were born here to also work under the table and not pay taxes, while also bleeding the state dry with social welfare programs.
Now,
sounds like an ideal solution to the problem of government.
Are you kidding me?
I got a question for you, Carlos.
Are you kidding me?
Why would I be kidding you?
She's not kidding, and I understand that activism.
She's not kidding, but she must know that people like my family that came over here. That fled the communist Holocaust.
Okay, which is literally what these other immigrants are doing, but you seem to have an issue with that.
And a lot of these Central American immigrants, for example, and South American immigrants that are coming to this country are leaving their countries because the United States has for decades been destabilizing, like the likes of Elliot Abrams going and massacring people in Central America and Grenada and all these little countries.
Listen,
I agree it's not our problem, but what these immigrants want to do is almost literally what your parents did.
Aria, right? Aria? Is that your name, Aria?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
There's some echo as well.
Let me speak. Hey, listen, I feel for these people, and I'm glad that I
have to interrupt you here because I don't think you do feel for these people. And I don't think you feel for your parents based on what you're saying. What these people are doing...
No, I got lucky. That's true. That's true.
What these people are doing is fleeing communist regimes It doesn't matter whether or not they voted for them.
They're fleeing narco terrorism that the United States should take care of. You know, we spend a lot of money at blowing up.
You know how you stop narco terrorism? You legalize all narcs, all the narcotics.
You know what? I don't disagree with you there. Like I do not disagree with, like, if you want to kill yourself with heroin, fine, go ahead. But these people have the narcos have taken over the government of Mexico, and it cannot be denied.
I mean, it kind of can be, because the Mexican government was just fighting some of the drug cartels, and there was kind of a war zone for a little while. So, I mean, the drug cartels clearly have not taken over any of these governments. If they were, the governments wouldn't be fighting those drug cartels. But Jay is absolutely right. If you want to get rid of these drug cartels, you get rid of them the same way we got rid of Al Capone. You legalize the substance they're selling.
The attorney, Eric Holder, who was the Attorney General of the United States during Obama, literally sent millions of guns.
Operation Fast and Furious, right?
Yes, to the Mexican cartels. The Mexican cartels are fueled by the prohibition of narcotics in this country.
Carlos, thank you so much for the call. I think you're entirely wrong, and I think you should reflect on your family past and how it fled communism to come to the United States and have a better life. Head on over to freetalklive.com to check out the show archives going back more than 10 years. Of course, we'll be back same time tomorrow night, 855, Force of Habit, freetalklive.com.
Hi, guys. This is Roger Paxton of the Lava Flow podcast and a co-host of Free Talk Live. What you're about to hear is a cut-down version of one of my episodes of the Lava Flow podcast. What you're going to hear is not safe for work. There is some colorful language, and none of what you're going to hear is endorsed by Free Talk Live. To get more, go to thelavaflow.com and listen to this full episode. I sure hope you enjoy it. I give you the final 10 of the 20 reasons not to vote. Do you agree with all of these? What's in the news were stories on cop stuns grandmother 3 times, cop sexually assaults 2 children, Assange blocked from seeing the evidence against him, Manning being tortured, Illinois pardons 11,000 people for cannabis, and private police service mounts private prosecutions department in the UK. And in Ask Me Anything, where I answer your questions on what is most likely in a list of improbable items, private DNA databases, and what did I accomplish in 2019, and what do I hope to accomplish in 2020?
Welcome to the Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the 5th smallest state in the U.S., this is the show where I shoot from the lip to bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at The Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 150, Reasons Not to Vote, Part 2. And it's Tuesday, January 7th, 2020, when there were more than 931 people killed by police this year, and the United States debt clock shows us at more than $23,161,100 million in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. One question I get asked a lot in relation to this show is why I don't vote. Now, I've answered it in many ways at various times over the last few years of this show, but I took a deep dive into voting on the Essential Libertarianism podcast as well. But a great article came across my monitors recently from the website The Art of Not Being Governed. The article is titled 20 Reasons Not to Vote, and I agree with most of these reasons, so I wanted to share this with you. I will, of course, add my commentary because you know that I can't keep my mouth shut for long. This is the last 10 of the 20 reasons not to vote. I did the first 10 a couple of weeks ago in episode 149. You can listen to that at thelavaflow.com/149. So let's jump into the rest of this list. Number 11. Voting reinforces the idea that the people have the power rather than the largely unaccountable bureaucrats who make the rules. Now, of course, this one I agree with 100%. We all know who has the power in this relationship, and it's not we the people, that's for damn sure. But by voting, it reinforces a mistaken ideal that is not accurate. and confuses the issue for the sheeple who still believe that we the people have the power. Number 12, voting is futile because invariably the better financed candidate wins. Boy, isn't this the truth? Yes, there are exceptions to every rule, but the exceptions in this case are so rare that it's laughable. Also, the tallest candidate usually wins, and the better looking. Voting is nothing more than a popularity contest these days. Number 13. Statistically, any one vote makes no more difference than a single grain of sand on a beach. Thinking that their vote counts tends to give the voter a mistaken, inflated sense of self-worth, and participation in a system creates a passive sense of accomplishment. Absolutely. I mean, the chances of your vote making a difference are minuscule. Your vote does not count, and it likely never will. You have a better chance of winning the lottery or being struck by lightning twice than of having your vote actually decide a political outcome. Number 14. An individual's ability to make an informed choice is zero if the only information they receive is from the overtly biased mainstream media, government news channels, politicians, and party manifestos, or from an enforced state school education. Now let's be honest here, folks. How many people do you think who vote actually take the time to look into the candidates more than what they're being force-fed from Facebook, YouTube, school, or the mainstream media? I would venture to say the number is so small as to be nearly incalculable. Number 15. Voting sends a false signal to the elected politicians that the voter approves of all of their policies. Voters therefore encourage them. So true, and this is why I say stop encouraging the bastards. How many of our elected officials barely win an election and then say they have a mandate from the voters for their policies? It happens all the time. If you're voting, you are helping perpetuate that encouragement, even if you voted against that candidate. Could a candidate say that they had a mandate if no one showed up and voted? Of course not. Number 16. If an individual has not come to firm conclusions about the election, then that individual will do more for their country or community by not voting, rather than making a mistake. And again, I agree here. An uneducated voter is doing real damage to the people under the rule of the elected representatives, since they have been selected based on a popularity contest instead of informed voters making an informed, wise decision. Number 17. If the outcome of a vote is unknown, then voting is tantamount to gambling. If the outcome of a vote is known, then voting is futile. Now, I'm not so sure about this one. Mass selection is not gambling, in my opinion. But the second part of this, that voting is futile when the result is known, is absolutely accurate. I would go further by saying that voting is always futile. Number 18. No individual has the authority to make laws that their neighbor or anyone else must obey. With that being the case, then how is it morally acceptable for any individual to delegate authority that they don't have to someone else, such as a politician? 100% yes. You can't make something right or moral by adding more people to it. Can you morally rob your neighbor? Of course not. Can you and two other neighbors morally go rob your neighbor? Of course not. Then can you and all of your neighbors morally vote for a group of other people to rob your neighbor? No. You cannot delegate a right or authority to someone else without first having that right or authority. Number 19. Should people who know more about game shows, sports, reality TV, and celebrities, rather than matters of real importance, economics, political philosophy, history, logic, critical thinking, etc., be in a position to vote and influence the lives of others? Wow. I mean, they really went there, and I love it. Most people spend more time focusing on things that don't matter than they do on things that actually have a direct impact on their lives. All of us are guilty of this to some extent, me included. I love my Star Wars, including the movies, TV shows, novels, and comics, and I spend a lot of time in that universe, sometimes more than I should, for sure. Having an escape is not a bad thing, but knowing more about your escape than the people you're voting for to have a direct impact on your life and to rule over you is inexcusable. And finally, number 20. Supporting the lesser of two evils is still supporting evil. I was hoping that they would get to this one at some point, and they did not disappoint. This is very self-explanatory. Evil is evil. even if you vote for the lesser evil. And those of you who think that defensive voting, for example, voting against a tax or voting for a lower tax, is not evil, this includes even you voting for a lesser tax than the one that is being proposed. Taxation is evil, so voting for a lesser tax is still evil. So these are the final 10 of the 20 reasons not to vote. Now, I'm not saying you're not a libertarian if you vote, so please don't mistake me. I am saying, though, that it is pretty hard to call yourself an anarchist or a voluntarist if you continue to beg for scraps from the troughs of our rulers. Some people do, though. I guess, though, someone can call themselves anything they wish. I mean, hell, Bill Weld says he's a libertarian. In that vein, this article from The Art of Not Being Governed ends with the following statements. The 20 reasons not to vote boil down to this. If you are not a voluntarist, then by definition you are an involuntarist. And as such, you personally advocate the initiation of force or the threat of force against people who haven't threatened or harmed anyone. Therefore, for every person in the world, one of these two statements is true. Either 1, I advocate a society whereby people are free to voluntarily interact with one another. Or 2, I advocate the use of force or threat of force against innocent people in order to make them comply with my opinions and preferences. If the first statement refers to you, then don't vote.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In Bad Boys news, in Florida, cops used a stun gun on a 70-year-old grandmother 3 times on her 70th birthday. Authorities in Florida struck a woman with a stun gun 3 times on her 70th birthday after she refused to allow them into her home to search for her grandson, documents show. The woman, Barbara Pinckney of Bradenton in Manatee County, was charged Thursday with obstruction and battery on a law enforcement officer, according to a probable cause affidavit obtained by NBC News. The documents say the grandson, Tevin Turner, was wanted on a probation violation for carrying a concealed weapon. Records listed Pinckney's address as Turner's, the documents say, although Pinckney said that he had just used her address while on probation. Pinckney said she was scared when authorities began pounding on her door early Thursday. She said, I was just hollering. I didn't know what else to do. According to the affidavit, Pinckney demanded a search warrant, which an officer said was unnecessary because authorities had already obtained an arrest warrant. When an officer warned her that she could be arrested if Turner was inside, she still refused to open the door. A struggle ensued when the officer tried to force the door open, with Pinckney trying to shut it and the officer grabbing her wrist and telling her she was going to jail. Cell phone video recorded by Pinckney's daughter-in-law, Elizabeth Francisco, shows Pinckney appear to pull away from the officer when he fires the stun gun. Screaming can be heard in the video. The affidavit says the officer fired after she pushed him in the chest. He struck her once with the stun gun in the left arm with no effect, then again in the back. This fucking coward. A 70-year-old woman supposedly pushed him, so he tases her? What a fucking pussy. The officer then took her to the ground, the document says, adding that she continued to resist, placing her hands behind her back. The officer then struck her again with a stun gun, this time in the upper back. The weapon again had no effect, so he secured her with his knee until another officer could handcuff her. Look, if your day-to-day job requires you to bully a 70-year-old woman for securing her person, papers, and things, then maybe you're in the wrong fucking business. Get a real job. In Not All Heroes Wear Capes news, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been blocked from seeing key evidence from U.S. authorities who want to extradite him for leaking sensitive military data. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has yet to be shown key evidence in the case brought against him by the American authorities. The 48-year-old faces accusations of leaking sensitive United States military material between January and May of 2010. The Americans want to extradite him to U.S. soil so he can be prosecuted for conspiring with Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning for leaking classified documents. Gareth Pierce, representing Assange, said, "The summary case, which we have prepared, is a dense document. Mr. Assange has not been given what he must be given, and we are keen to go through this to the best of our abilities to keep with the requests of the court. It is predicated on the underlying evidence that Mr. Assange has not been able to review." Last month, Swedish authorities dropped rape allegations made in 2010 against Julian Assange. Now, isn't this just typical of U.S. justice? The justice system in the U.S. has rules that they must follow, unless they decide they don't want to. Then they don't. But damn it, you better not miss any of their rules, or you are fucked. Free Julian Assange. In some good news, the Illinois governor granted more than 11,000 pardons for low-level marijuana convictions, describing the step as the first wave of thousands of such expungements anticipated under the state's new medical legislation laws. The expungement process is a key part of the law, which takes effect Wednesday and made Illinois the 11th state to legalize marijuana for people 21 or older. When they crafted the policy, Illinois lawmakers said they wanted to repair some of the damage caused by law enforcement's efforts to combat sale and use of the drug, particularly in minority communities. Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker announced the pardons at a church on Chicago's South Side. He said clearing the misdemeanor offenses from individuals' records will make it easier for them to get jobs, housing, and financial aid for college. State officials estimated that 116,000 convictions involving 30 grams or less of marijuana, including for possession of the drug, are eligible for pardons under the new law. Illinois State Police are responsible for identifying those convictions and sending the records to the state's Prisoner Review Board, which then forwarded eligible cases to the governor's office for pardons. Pritzker's pardons allow the state attorney general to ask courts to formally clear or seal the records. Pritzker said in a statement, "We are ending the 50-year-long war on cannabis. We are restoring rights to the many tens of thousands of Illinoisans. We are bringing regulation and safety to a previously unsafe and illegal market, and we are creating a new industry that puts equity at its very core." Well, he got this mostly right, but it was never a war on cannabis. It was a war on people who use cannabis. Other states that have begun permitting marijuana sales and use created procedures for people to expunge minor drug offenses, but Illinois officials wanted the process to be almost automatic for people with nonviolent marijuana arrests or convictions on their records. Some people still will have to act independently to have marijuana convictions expunged. People who have been convicted of offenses involving between 30 and 500 grams of marijuana in Illinois can file court petitions to clear those records. Local prosecutors and legal aid organizations also can take that step independently. State officials estimate that 34,000 records are eligible for that process. Law enforcement agencies have a 5-year period to expunge records of minor marijuana arrests that did not result in a conviction, starting with the most recent cases. Officials estimate that 572,000 arrest records fall into that category. 572,000 arrests over a 5-year period for cannabis. Let that sink in. Marijuana arrests accompanied by violent offenses are not eligible for expungement. Now, I applaud the state of Illinois for this action. I just wish they'd go further than 5 years, personally.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email AMA@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
It's that time again. I'm going to answer your burning questions. Remember, you can ask me your question by adding it to the thread that I post in the Pax Libertas Productions Podcast Fans Facebook group or by emailing me at AMA@thelavaflow.com. Or if you are awesome as fuck and you support this show, you can ask me your question in the Lava Flow Super Supporters Facebook group or in Patreon. So let's jump into the questions. First, the ever-curious Daryl W. Perry asks, which is more likely? 1. Earth is flat. 2. Gravity is real. 3. Time is an illusion. 4. We all live in a simulation and nothing exists. Well, some of these have already been proven without a doubt, such as the Earth is round and gravity does exist, so those two are out. Time is an illusion. I'm not sure in what perspective this means, but time is clearly not an illusion as we can measure time. The only one of these that I could conceivably say is the most likely is that we live in some sort of matrix-like simulation. More likely than the other options? Yes. Likely, though? No, not really. Daryl also asks, I just read an article about police using DNA genealogical databases with few rules and little transparency. Have you ever taken a DNA test? If so, what are your thoughts on this abuse of power by the thin blue line? Yes, Daryl, I have taken a DNA test. I was gifted a test a couple of years ago from 23andMe, and I took it. It was pretty interesting, the genealogical and health data that I received. So, yes, since my DNA is in the private hands of 23andMe, the fact that cops are using sweeping warrants to get access to potentially tens of thousands of results at a time is scary as fuck. I will say, though, that 23andMe has not been involved in such a broad sweep of data being gathered by police. Yet. And they are very resistant to it as well. On their site, 23andMe has the following information on a specific page set up specifically for police trying to gain access to DNA information from them. It says, 23andMe chooses to use all practical, legal, and administrative resources to resist requests from law enforcement, and we do not share customer data with any public databases or with entities that may increase the risk of law enforcement access. In certain circumstances, however, 23andMe may be required by law to comply with a valid court order, subpoena, or search warrant for genetic or personal information. 23andMe requires a valid legal process in order to consider producing information about our users. 23andMe will only review inquiries related to a valid trial, grand jury, or administrative subpoena, warrant, or order. 23andMe will consider releasing additional account information or transactional information pertaining to account only in response to a court order. In addition, 23andMe will only consider inquiries from a government agency with proper jurisdiction. To date, 23andMe has never received a request to preserve information potentially relevant to legal proceedings. If 23andMe is required by law to comply with a valid court order, subpoena, or search warrant for genetic or personal information, we will notify the affected individuals through the contact information they have provided to us before we disclose this information to law enforcement, unless doing so would violate the law or the court order. We will give them a reasonable period of time to move to quash the subpoena before we answer it. Now, I'm certainly personally glad to see that at least one of these companies stands up to the cops and the rule of law. So I'm glad I used 23andMe. Thank you for the questions, Daryl. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite New Year's kiss, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on this show, go to thelavaflow.com/150. I have one new supporter this week. Chris R. signed up at thelavaflow.com/support at the $5 per month level. Chris, thank you so much, man. You rock. So thanks to all of my awesome supporters like Chris, I am at $246 per episode, or 49.25% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Guys, thank you all for the support, really. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I'm going to be upping the content that I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you. So please make your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting right now. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a donation of as little as $1 a week using Federal Reserve notes through my site or using cryptocurrencies through Bitbacker. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. I don't have any new reviews this week, but if you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on the show, please go to lavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.